Joining us live now in our New York studios is Senator Ernest Hollings of South Carolina, the ranking Democrat on the Senate's Science, Commerce, and Transportation Committee. He wants a Senate investigation of the shuttle disaster. And joining us at our station, KTRK in Houston, Jerry Griffin, who 6 weeks ago retired as director of the Johnson Space Center. Mr. Griffin spent 25 years with the Federal Space Agency in positions ranging from flight control to upper-level management. Senator Hollings, why do you want a Senate investigation? It seems to me the President's commission is doing a rather extraordinary job.
Not extraordinary at all. Actually, Ted, they're disorganized in the context of what's important is being already gone into. Yes, what they did today was important, but what's even more important is being ignored, and that is why were the procedures reversed? The case is getting cold. You need field investigators. I've told that to Secretary Rogers, but they're trying to do it all themselves. I couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. But you need the field investigators to follow up with the hard questions down there at Huntsville, up at Thiokol, and here in Washington. Why were these safety procedures reversed for the first time? NASA has never launched over the objection of a contractor saying that it was unsafe. Here, 2 contractors said it was unsafe. It's been reversed, and now they're on to the booster itself today in a public hearing, how it was so cold last week. The Marshall Space Center crowd said that the cold didn't even affect the O-ring. Now it whopped the entire booster itself. That may be all right. Keep on investigating that, but let's not let the case get cold, the witnesses get lost, the testimony become obscured. I want to know from Malloy, when he says he was only bringing challenges, that was challenges not to practice safety, but to violate safety.
Senator, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And I'm talking now just on the basis, those sound bites that we had, they were
Right.
all taken from the Presidential Investigating Commission.
Right.
And as you string them together there, you were forced to the unalterable conclusion that somebody really screwed up there. I mean, you can't
Right.
look at those sound bites without knowing that pressure was brought to bear. It may have been the kind of subtle corporate pressure that folks afterwards like to pretend didn't exist, but you listen to those people, you can't help but conclude that there was pressure. Now, what more do you think you're going to get?
Now, why the pressure? Where did it come from? That's what we're doing. We're looking at the technical. We're looking at the hardware failures this week. We ought to be pursuing even more diligently the human failure. They started on it last week. All of those bites were from last week. Why not follow it up right now? Why not find out on National Public Radio? We had many witnesses saying, look, we thought it was going to blow up on the pad. We thought, by cracky, that it would never fly, and we all, when it exploded, knew why. Why don't they follow up that testimony? I want to know why. I want them to come to the Congress and say, look, if you've got this space program on such a schedule that they're just putting flights up to keep a schedule, making it unsafe itself, maybe Congress is at fault. Maybe the White House. Did they bring any pressure? Let's look into this. Did the contractor, was he trying for the renegotiation of his contract?
All right,
was he bringing pressure?
Senator, you're raising a heck of a lot of interesting questions.
Right.
Let's pose some of them to Jerry Griffin.
Yeah.
Why that pressure, Mr. Griffin?
Well, Ted, I think Senator Hollings has opened up so many subjects there that it's hard to comment on any one.
Pick any one of them.
Let me drop back a step. I think what we've had here is an accident in a very risk-intensive business that we must find the cause of why it happened. Obviously, something went wrong with the hardware, with people's decisions, whatever. My hope is that what we'll do is let the accident investigation proceed to a point, and they are reducing the number of scenarios to where we know for sure what happened. Then we can go back and question, why did it happen? Failure has been a visitor to American rocketry since its beginning. And Lord knows, I hope we don't have another one. But it's not unusual. I think it's something that we've got to drive the risk as low as we possibly can, but we'll never drive it to zero.
Mr. Griffin.
I think people have got to understand that and do the best we can.
But Jerry, this was the unusual. Isn't that true? Doesn't everybody agree? Don't you agree that they never did go over the objection of a contractor when he said it was unsafe? Have they ever launched before like that?
Let me describe something about the launch decision process itself, and it's more than just launching solid rockets and main engines on the orbiter. The people that have got to make that decision are making decisions that are literally a pyramid. It's three-dimensional, because not only are they looking at launch, they're looking at what's going to happen in orbit. We got to make sure the vehicle is safe to land and re-enter. So the idea of making sure that the rocket system is ready is only a piece of the puzzle.
Mr. Griffin, do me a favor, because we have limited time here. Senator Hollings has raised, it seems to me, an exceedingly important point, and that is there any precedent for the decision makers to launch over the recommendations of some of the technical people, like the folks from Thiaco?
Well, Ted, again here, what I was building to is that what you've got is a pyramid of decisions where you actually delegate to lower levels exactly what certain decisions that must be made, because people at top just can't make all of them.
I do understand that, sir. What I'm saying is, and I realize that sometimes these answers are more complex than the questions would seem to suggest, but there must be a generalized answer that can be given to that. Has it ever happened before?
Let me say, in my judgment, we have always had some people that were nervous about launching any vehicle, and that's why the decision tree has to work. The point is that the contractor here made a decision, for whatever reason, both technical and managerial, that I think he made based on his best judgment and his best input. Now, that's got to be tested. If temperature was a problem, and the folks there at Thiaco were saying don't launch because there's a temperature problem, then, Roger, we've got a problem that we got to deal with.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a break. When we come back, who would you like to see conduct this investigation? Do you have the confidence that the Presidential Commission can sort it all out, or would you rather put it in Senator Hollings' hands?
Well, I first, with all due respect, I think I would like to first see what the Commission comes up with. I think they're getting some good answers. They're not doing it totally on their own. They're getting a lot of inputs from NASA and people. I know that our own people, I participated in a team that's dug into some of the data that came from this flight and trying to provide the information on which a decision can be made as to what happened. Hopefully, the Commission's got about 3 more months. They'll come up with the answers. I know I'm very anxious to read that report because I want to find out myself what their assessment is.
Senator Hollings, it has been suggested, it may even have been suggested by you, that some of the pressure may have come from the White House itself.
Right.
Why?
No question that the White House was interested in this. I never have found out who was in contact with that particular shuttle launch. Yeah, the president was talking that day. He had a speech prepared. He had everybody in the room ready to be briefed at 12 noon just before the particular explosion. We can't find copies of that speeches. It is reported that he would be referring in that talk to the astronaut Krista McAuliffe, who was going up, the school teacher and what have you. There's been a total blackout on that particular score. We don't know, but let's clear that up. Why in the heaven's name would you not get into it and clear it all up and find out where the pressure's coming from? Now, let's go back to Hartsfield. He's right. They do have a good track record. They have a lot to be proud about, and their process was tried and true. Herein, it was violated. It's just not a question of nervousness. This is no time at time of launch for split decisions. They have never in the history of NASA ever launched over the objection of a contractor, and 2 separate contractors for 2 different reasons said it was unsafe.
All right, let me, Jerry Griffin, let me ask you this question. I mean, and I say this without the sarcasm that you may detect here. Here now we have one of the avenging eagles of the U.S. Congress, but this is the same U.S. Congress that wasn't giving NASA the amount of money that NASA said it needed. Any fault there?
No, I don't think so. The pressure, if there was pressure, was not anything new to the NASA system. In fact, Ted, we were increasing the flight rate, flying more often because of good decisions, I think, made through the congressional process. That is, to build more orbiters, build more launch pads, have more facilities, etc. Now, the fact is that, and I don't think I can accept the fact that the White House put pressure on this particular launch. We've had Jake Garn and other people that have flown. We've scrubbed those missions. If anybody in the management chain that had to make that final decision had thought that it was unsafe to launch, they had no motivation to launch. Because, in fact, we have an old saying in NASA, an on-time failure seldom gets an award. And we think about that. We don't want a failure just in the interest of schedule.
Mr. Hartsfield, I'm going to leave you the last comment because you're the only one who's been up there. Why, if there was no pressure, and if, as we now know, serious questions were raised, why then in heaven's name do you think it was launched that day?
Well, I have no idea. There are pressures in this program. There are pressures of the manifest. We had an ambitious flight schedule, but there are pressures all along the program. There's pressures on the crew to get trained. There's pressures to get the bird turned around. And all these pressures may take their toll. I'm hoping that the commission will tell us whether we had too much pressure at the time. I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I'm not privy to all the information they have.
Mr. Hartfield, I'm afraid we're going to have to stop at that point. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Jerry Griffin, Senator Hollings, and, of course, Mr. Hartfield, I thank you all for being with us this